Jake Knapp is the inventor of the design sprint and the New York Times bestselling author of the book Sprint. He's also the co-founder of Character, a venture fund for early stage startups. How and why did you start using Miro?
I came from this position of thinking, I don't want to be doing stuff online, to thinking now when I do a sprint in person with a company, it's like, we're going to use Miro, even though we're all in the same room, because that's a better way for us to get this work done. As an investor, we're basically investing in their ability to solve problems. We're saying, we think this group of people is going to be able to solve a problem in a really great way and create value by doing it. And actually, you need to give people the tools that can help them make decisions, help them collaborate, help them visualize and see things in a different way. And Miro does all those things. So to me, at least as an investor, I'm thinking, give the team the tools that are going to help them think, that are going to make the most, brighten their skills as smart folks. And Miro is at the top of that list.
Welcome into The Verge, a show which covers the Baltimore Orioles minor leagues. The Verge is part of BSL Radio. Baltimore Sports and Life is dedicated to analysis and discussion on the Orioles, Baltimore Ravens, and the University of Maryland. The site has a team of writers providing coverage of those teams and houses live streaming content weekly. Join the conversations at the message board, like BSL on Facebook, and follow BSL on Twitter.
Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we feel like having options like video podcasts and Q&A lets us be more creative on another level. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Welcome to On the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's show, we're going to get into some news, including the promotions of Nick Vespi and Logan Gillespie to the major leagues, as well as a debut that didn't happen on Monday night when Adley Rutschman was not promoted to the major leagues. We'll also get into Gunnar Henderson's continued success at AA Bowie and talk about our players that are under the radar. But tonight we're also joined by a special guest, Andy Kostka of the Baltimore Sun, who I'll introduce in a moment. Bob, as we always do each week, we like to shout out new members of our Patreon community, and I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, so last week we crossed 100 patrons, and we were lucky enough to get one more over the past week. B. Nickel, shout out to you on the Baltimore Sports and Life message board. Thank you for supporting us, and welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club, absolutely. Introduce tonight's guest. He is a writer for the Baltimore Sun covering the Orioles. He is Andy Kostka. And Andy, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm Camden Yards right now, if you hear some background noise, but it's good to be here.
Yeah, you're the first guest that has actually joined us from the press box in the middle of the game. So
that's a nice ambiance.
The Verge asked me on. I say yes. So always, no matter where I am. So.
We're glad to have you. And we'll start with one of the big stories of today, which is that Nick Vespi was promoted from AAA Norfolk, joining the team. His performance at Norfolk over the first few weeks of the season spoke for itself. He was absolutely dominant there. But what kind of role do you think he has in this bullpen?
Yeah, I always kind of felt like it was a matter of time for him to get up to this level. I was down in Norfolk last week. I talked to him for a story. And, he really talked about how this year especially he's kind of done what a lot of pitchers in this organization have done, which is attack the zone more, less, trying to be perfect on the corners. He's really going after guys, and it's been a pretty immediate success for him at AAA level. For the major leagues, you figure he can probably slide into a little bit of the mid to late inning role. He's probably just going to be a 1 inning guy. Obviously, it's nice to have a lefty in the pen, especially against the Yankees when you have some lefty power hitters like Joey Gallo and stuff like that. So it could be a matchup kind of guy, but he's shown throughout his, especially this season, that he's not necessarily a split guy. He doesn't need to be lefty. He can do both sides. So especially because he's got running the fastball. It's like almost a cutter, and then the slider is kind of his knockout pitch. So he will be, a pretty decent, should be pretty decent out of the pen immediately, at least if it translates from AAA. And imagine it would be something like filling in for Paul Fry or what they thought Logan Allen would be. It could kind of be the same thing.
Yeah, interesting comment from, Nick Turney here. Sees Vespi fill in the same role that Richard Blyer did. And yeah, I guess I could kind of see that. I think he has a little more upside than Blyer did, but, as soon as Paul Fry was optioned, I felt like the writing was on the wall that Vespi was going to eventually take his spot at the Major League roster, and then obviously he was DFA'd even this past weekend. So, yeah, excited to see him up here, get that slider going. He had a great Arizona Fall League, has been amazing in Norfolk so far this year, and it'll be exciting whenever, maybe tonight while you're live on the show, he'll make his Major League debut.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned in a previous story about some call-ups that Buck Britton was kind of chomping at the bit to give that call to those guys. How did that play out for Vespi? Was it Britton that gave him that call, or do you happen to know?
Yeah. I talked to Vespi before the game today. He said Britton gave him the call last night, actually, and said, hey, it's a possibility that you're going to come up. And so the first thing, that Vespi did was he called his parents, and they, even though it was just a possibility, they booked tickets from South Florida to Baltimore, just in case it would happen. And his brother, who just graduated college, his younger brother just graduated, and he's here tonight as well as some family friends in the park. So everyone pretty much moved, and then early this morning he got the official yep, you're going to Baltimore. So he made the trip from Charlotte, I believe is where he made the trip from, and it was. I don't think Buck Britton has these grand ideas of how he wants to do it. Sometime he mentioned how he wants to include the Norfolk Police Department in one if he has enough time to do it. But so far he hasn't. Number one, he hasn't told many people. Bradish was told by Chris Holt broke the news instead of Buck Britton, so we didn't get a chance there. But some of the guys, has been so last minute. Such a rushed call up that he hasn't really had time to plan something that special. But no matter if it's a phone call at 9 p.m. last night or whatever it is, it's going to be special for Nick Vespi no matter what. So.
Yeah, and we saw a word right afterwards. A lot of movement seemed to be going on this afternoon, and then in the middle of all that, Logan Gillespie gets the call up as well. Wasn't in AAA for too long. The organization is clearly pretty high on him, added to the 40-man to protect him from the Rule 5 draft over the offseason. But how do you think they're going to use him this season now that he's up? And what have you heard about him from the organization?
Yeah, we asked Hyde about that pregame, and he thought he was going to be just a valuable arm to have kind of in the mix, especially during this long stretch of games. And he can cover multiple innings as Austin Hayes sends one to the warning track, and that's caught. But yeah, Gillespie can cover multiple innings, and that'll be a good thing for this bullpen just right now. They're in the middle of this 19 day, which I'm feeling too. I know the players must be feeling it if I am. So he can definitely, obviously, when they added him to the 40-man, it was a pretty clear indication that they were high on him last season. And again, he will be, kind of a multi-inning guy that has some pretty good stuff. Unfortunately, the move was made so late that we didn't get a chance to talk to him in the clubhouse. I haven't seen an awful lot of him, unfortunately, so I can't give you an in-depth scouting report or anything. But he'll cover multiple innings, and he will come in handy this stretch of games.
Yeah, we know he throws hard. He's got a nice off-speed pitch, and he works fast like our favorite Gene Pinto. So that'll be fun to watch at the Major League level. So,
go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say one guy who also made his Major League debut in St. Louis, who was on the taxi squad, and then he got demoted today, is Rylan Bannon. And do you think he showed enough to, earn another look down the line if they need somebody, or what do you think the plan is with him? Is he just like a fill-in guy when needed, or do you think he has a chance to carve out a role with the team?
Yeah, it kind of felt a little bit more. Sorry, Cedric Mullins just stole the base, so there's going to be some background noise for a second. You got a good jump on that, but. Yeah, I kind of felt like Rylan Bannon was maybe more of a fill-in type. The fact that he doesn't have the position versatility that a guy like Tyler Nevin does always limits him a little bit. The fact that Nevin can play 5 spots if you include DH, but all the corners really helps, even if he's going to be hitting under the Mendoza line right now, and you figure maybe he evens it out a little bit. But that'll keep Nevin around. And the thing with Rylan Bannon, he's really a third baseman. Brandon Hyde said he was willing to kind of give him a shot at second base if he needed to. That shot never really came to be, just because there wasn't super a need. I mean, you had Odor, you kind of needed a lefty in the lineup, so it was not an opportunity to have an experiment with Bannon at second ever when he was up here in St. Louis and Detroit. But yeah, he could. You never know. With I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, it would be great. But you never really know with these guys. But he definitely showed that he's a pretty athletic third baseman. He can make a lot of plays. Maybe that translates over to second base pretty well, and that could be useful down the line. One injury and he's up again, definitely. But we'll kind of see down the stretch what exactly happens.
The player that I think a lot of fans are really interested in following right now is Kyle Bradish. He's really the first prospect in the wave of what we think is going to be a lot of big debuts this year. And so far, things have been relatively successful for him. He did have a little bit of a command issue Monday night against the Yankees, but he was dominant in St. Louis last week. Have you been surprised at all that he's kind of started off strong?
I don't think I'm surprised. He's 25. He was really good at Mexico State. He's a pretty experienced player for in terms of prospects go. So I feel like he was pretty ready for this. And talking to him, like, he is incredibly. We have a ball coming towards us. Oh, wow, that's pretty amazing. We usually don't get them in the press box here. So that's cool. But yeah, he seems very very poised. He's not really rattled by things. It kind of, if he can live in the zone, he's going to be good. And last night it was his off-speed pitches. Well, the changeup was working okay, but like the slider especially was really not as crisp as it could have been last night. And that's going to be the main thing, is if he can spot that pitch, he can do what he did against St. Louis. Last night it was not the best performance from him, but again, it's against a Yankees lineup that has some power left-handers in there. Had some trouble. He worked through. He was pumped getting off the mound in the first inning after a 30-pitch first inning and gave up no runs. So it wasn't a bad outing by any means, but definitely was a step down from what he has been doing. But yeah, I'm not entirely surprised. I think this is kind of the guy he is. He's been ready for this, and it just was a matter of time before he got up here and could show it.
Yeah, I was at the game last night, as was Zach, and the stuff obviously plays, like the slider fastball combination. It's just a matter of command with him. And I was actually talking with Zach Peak for a minute while we were at the game, and it seemed like a lot of the Bowie and Aberdeen players were there watching Bradish pitch and having a good time. So it was cool to see. That's a tough Yankee lineup. I thought he actually pitched pretty well despite the end results there.
Yeah, and of course the homer last night is a Jose Trevino into the right corner that goes like 320 feet. So it's kind of like just an unfortunate. That could be a fly out in another park. So instead he goes 4 runs instead of, it could have been 1 run in a different world, I guess. But it is what it is. Those nights will happen.
I guess it kind of evened out with that Stanton hit to left field. It might have been gone if the wall hadn't been moved back.
Yeah. Just looking at this Major League roster as a whole, what's kind of a month into the season or so, what surprised you the most about this Major League roster?
I guess the middle infield kind of surprises me a little bit. The fact that Chris Owings has a place on this roster and he seems to not be in the everyday plans at all. I kind of figured if he was going to be around, you'd want him to get at-bats and pinch hit or defense replacement, whatever it might be that at anywhere on the left side of the infield, second base, or anywhere in the outfield. Instead, it's been, I forget exactly how many games he's played off the top of my head here, but I mean, I think he's played like 2 games this month, like some of like that. It's been pretty infrequent, maybe 3, but that is a surprising thing that they haven't utilized that roster spot in a way that, especially with a short bench, when you had, Mateo is going to be back tomorrow, most likely. When you had Austin Hayes out too, but on the active roster, I mean, you basically had a 2-man bench and then never used any bench players. So it was kind of interesting. Again, I mean, his performances at the plate haven't really warranted much of a role. his utility ability is kind of maybe the best reason why he's here. He can play everywhere, but currently he's not playing anywhere. So it's just kind of that's surprising a little bit, I would say. Yeah.
Do you think that is he's got that spot just because of that? Like he's a guy that you don't have to worry about getting him in there. Like if you had a guy like Jahmai Jones, Rylan Bannon at that last man on the bench spot, you want to get them more at bats than just once every week. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I have thought about that, and it's definitely a case where if you have a younger guy, you don't want to have him come up and then sit on the bench. I mean, you want regular at bats for these guys, and that was a lot of the reason why Ryan McKenna went down in the first place. Before now he's back because of injury kind of situation. But you kind of want everyday at bats for young players, and so with Owings you can kind of leave him be, and he's a vet. He knows how to go about his day to day, and you don't have to really worry about him. And there's a little bit for a team that is incredibly young. There is a little bit of luxury to have a guy who has been around and you don't really need to worry about on a day-to-day basis. And I'm sure he would like more playing time, but Brandon Hyde doesn't need to worry about, oh my goodness, I have a top 30 prospect that's sitting on the bench when he should be, in the game, which you could argue that Jones could be playing second base on a nightly basis instead of Odor. But the thing they like so much about Odor is a lefty bat, which they have very few of right now. So at some point, you'll eventually see like Stowers or Newstrom up with a lefty bat that'll help in the outfield a little bit.
Get healthy, Taron Vavra, right?
Yeah. So if you'll see some movement eventually, but yeah, I think right now it's tough to warrant having another player that you'd like to get everyday playing time to sit as a 26 man on the bench. So.
Yeah. Speaking of Mateo, you said he's coming back tomorrow, hopefully. We had Kyle Glazer from Baseball America on a couple of months ago, and he was really dismissive of Mateo. He's a 26 guy on the end of your bench. I think he had some looking at his time in San Diego, which wasn't very high on Mateo. But what have you seen from the growth of Jorge Mateo this year, and kind of what impact has Matt Bork-Schulte and Ryan Fuller and this new hitting staff had on his development?
Yeah, I actually just wrote a story. I was talking to Matt Fuller about the incremental swing changes that Jorge Mateo has had, and it really all started like once he made the opening day roster is when he kind of began these changes where he got a little bit lower in his stance. He spread out a little bit his base. He had such his load was like he went way back up here. Instead, they made his load a little easier and just goes into the slot. So it's more time, and his bat time in the zone is longer. Less. I think his previous swing, and that's through the middle. His previous swing was kind of in and out so fast that he had to be so on that it just the margin for error was tiny. So this helps his bat path being in the zone longer. Mateo, I feel like he's a dude that actually could stick with this team long term. I'm pretty high on him. Just the way that you can't teach speed. Well, you can't technically, but you can teach people to be somewhat faster, but not blazing fast like Mateo. I think is the third fastest sprint speed in MLB this season. His fielding is pretty top notch, honestly. He makes the spectacular. Sometimes the routine is you're just you gotta make those a little bit more consistently, but he can make the spectacular play. Last time I checked, he had 5 defensive runs saved in the season. So we're averaging defensive runs, saved, whatever the stat is. Help me out there, but he is doing well defensively, and I think. I wouldn't say he's a 26th man. I think he could be an everyday shortstop, honestly. And maybe that changes when you get Jordan Westbrook and Gunnar Henderson up here. Naturally, you have those guys. I think have maybe more plus at the plate. But Mateo, I think has a long-term role with the team, just with his utility defensively, but also his ability to run, and he has a little bit of pop. 2 homers this year, I think he has, and those come out in flashes every once in a while where you oh, I didn't expect him to hit a ball that far, but he can do that too. So yeah, he'll be back in the lineup tomorrow. He said today that he could have played today, but he just said that It was kind of a case of they just want to be like overly cautious with that left shoulder and make sure that there's nothing really going on. But yeah, he'll be back in the lineup soon, and he's proved himself so far as one of the, on a team that doesn't have that many consistent batters. I mean, he's kind of one of the few that have been pretty impressive this season.
I'm glad you brought up his defense because I remember when Mateo was a prospect, the book on him, as it is with a lot of young shortstops, is, he's going to have to move off the position. The glove isn't going to stick there. But yet this year, I think he's looked not only like a major league shortstop, but a significantly better major league shortstop than he was last year. So, do you know what kind of work he's been putting in defensively?
Yeah. Brandon Hyde said that every day before we even arrive, he's out there taking grounders there. And they don't practice like. He never practices the spectacular. He never practices balls off the middle that he has to twirl and spin and do all that fancy stuff that, with the off balance throw. He doesn't practice that at all. That's just kind of like he can do that and he'll pull that out. What he really practices is the day-to-day, like ground ball to short, it's going to be an out. Every single time it should be an out. And that's what he's trying to do. That's what he is kind of like hoping becomes the truth for him, is that every single time a ball is hit, within 4 steps to his right, 4 steps to his left, that it's going to be an automatic out. So, and he can make those plays where it's suddenly 7 steps to his left and it's still an out. And that's great. And it's great for his defense. But he's really worked on just the routine. And I think that's maybe been the biggest jump from even last year, as you said, but definitely as a prospect to now, he's made a jump in his defense. And he puts the work in, definitely.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that the defense has been, like you said, he's put the work in. It's definitely improved from where it was the last time we saw him last year. And offensively, he hits the ball hard. His expected batting average is 288 compared to his 241. Actual average, his expected slugging is 457, which is almost 100 points higher than his actual slugging percentage. So, yeah, I think he's played really well, and speed doesn't slump. So that's always a good thing to have. I think if he is the 26th man on the next Orioles playoff team, then it's pretty good 26 man. But where do you as Adley didn't sorry, go ahead.
It's fun. I just wanted to quickly, he mentioned one time, I asked him specifically about the swing changes and about like what he wants to do with the plate every time he gets there, and I think his direct quote was like, just put it in play, because like when he puts it in play, anything could happen. And I think like it's a very true, like if he puts the ball in play and does not strike out, like there's always a sliver of a chance that something happens and he's on second fairly soon with the way he steals. So it's but go on with Adley. I cut you off there.
Oh no, actually that reminds me, I wanted to say that bat path thing that you were talking about with him with his swing change. I think Adam Hall, I can't remember where I read that, but Adam Hall talked about making a similar change, and another fast guy that get the ball in play, utilize that speed. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I was going to say, obviously I think a lot of people expected Adley to come up and make his major league debut yesterday. That didn't happen. I think we're done guessing on when that's going to happen, whether it's Friday, whether it's May 31st, whether it's July 31st. But as he hit a 2-run homer tonight, what do you think the Orioles, where do you think the Orioles are in their process with him? And obviously they have a plan. Do you have any idea what it is?
I have no idea. Absolutely not. I don't think anybody does. And if they tell you that they have an idea what the Orioles' plan is, they're lying. I don't think anyone knows. I've been talking to people close. I'm doing a story on him for whenever it comes up about his football career, actually. So I'll give a subtle plug on that. But it's kind of a funny story. And talking to people close with him, and they have no idea. They keep asking me, like, when should I buy tickets? And I'm like, if you know where to buy tickets, like, tell me, then I know what, like, I should be prepared. Like, I don't think anybody really knows. Friday makes a lot of sense as a day, but Monday made a lot of sense. But we'll keep on guessing. I think he's ready. Like, I never thought that it was a chance of, it's going to be background noise here for a little bit. There's a double from Odor. Right as I criticize his offensive ability, it's a double.
How that goes.
But, yeah, I think there's never, I think the other day I saw he was over 4 or whatever, on Sunday, and Sunday it was, or something like that. And, it's hitting whatever it was in AAA, where it's like 200 or something like that, kind of below there. I honestly don't think that matters that much to the O's. I don't think they're waiting for him to say he has to hit 300 in AAA before we call him up. He did that last year. He was ready out of spring. He was basically going to be on this roster if he was healthy in spring training. So I really think all it is does he feel comfortable at the plate? And if he feels comfortable, it's now a tie game. If he feels comfortable at the plate and his timing's back, even if the balls aren't falling, and like if you looked earlier tonight, he hit a ground out like 107 miles per hour off the bat. So like you'll live with that out if you're just going to purely look at the analytics side of it, and like it shows up on the stat line as he's 0 for 1 tonight in the first inning, but he hit that as a laser. That was 107 off the bat. So I feel like that's probably a sign that he's comfortable, and if he's comfortable, he really should be playing at Camden Yards sooner rather than later. And I think they know that. They're just they want to be
as an E4 RBI. E4 RBI.
E4 RBI. If you need to hear that for the scoring at home, but I think it was definitely a case of he's ready and they're just now waiting for a good day to bring him up. And Friday would make sense. I don't love the idea of doing it on the road. Just as like a fan base thing, you basically want to have a packed Camden Yards for it, as packed as it can be. But yeah, we'll see. But I don't think they're waiting for him to magically hit a 2-run homer. I don't think that's going to change any. I don't think that's going to change too much.
Yeah, well, the home run he just hit right now is 112.6 miles per hour off the bat. So he's clearly up. He's clearly ready. But to look at another guy who just got sent down and kind of go in the reverse spectrum, opposite end of the spectrum here. But you recently wrote about Ryan McKenna and his hope to carve out a full-time role with the big league squad. Do you see any path where that's possible at this point for him?
1 second. Orioles have a lead 3-2, sack fly. You're asking about McKenna, with the – I have a really tough time, honestly. I know I wrote a story about how he wants that to happen. I have a tough time seeing him breaking into this outfield in a long-term, starting role. As a fourth outfielder, I can believe 100% because he can play all positions. He has speed. He is good defensively, even though, he kind of doofed a ball on his first day up in left field at Oriole Park. He misplayed a ball that was a double and turned into I guess one bag error, but technically a triple, I guess, if you want to just for layman's terms. But he could be a fourth outfielder. I don't see his potential maybe breaking into the starting lineup ever, especially when you have a guy like Kyle Stowers kind of breathing down the neck of he's going to get a promotion to AAA. You feel pretty soon, especially I think he hit a 2-run. Oh, is he already in AAA? Yeah, he's already in AAA. I'm mixing him up with who am I thinking about? Who are the 2 home runs tonight for in AA?
Gunnar. Gunnar had 2 home runs.
Yeah, Gunnar Henderson. I'm just mixing up my blonde-haired prospects. But yeah, you feel like Stowers is kind of close, honestly, and a guy like Robert Newstrom is close. So you have prospects in the system that maybe have more offensive upside. Although obviously McKenna has shown his bat at the AAA level has been great. So it's tough to say, but unless they trade Anthony Santander at the deadline and they need a starter in that fashion to kind of be a holdover, I think he'll be more of a fourth outfielder, especially now that Hayes is back in the lineup and Santander he hates playing DH. I asked him about playing DH, and he hates it. He just never wants to be DH. He wants to be in right field or left field every game. He loves fielding. Because I was talking to him, he was taking ground balls at first base one time, and I was asking about longevity and I mentioned how you're a switch hitter, you could be a great DH into your 30s, and he was like, no way. I'd rather play first base than be a DH when I'm in my 30s. So I think and he's a good fielder, so it's definitely doable for him to play in the field. You don't need to DH him. So I think McKenna will really be a fourth outfielder for the time being. Unless he's 25. You can't ever count somebody out. It would be crazy talk to say that's definitely going to be his cap, but it's probably what I would see it as at the moment.
You wrote a great piece recently covering Nick Vespi and Robert Newstrom. We know Vespi now is obviously in the majors, but we talked about how Newstrom really is trying to make himself a more complete player. We know he has a lot of power, but it's really the other areas of his game he's trying to prove are major league ready. What was your takeaway from that conversation with him?
Yeah, he talked a lot about, like, last year, especially heard when he wasn't put on the 40-man roster, that probably the biggest criticism of his game was his swing decisions. He could have some chase. He has a lot of power, but he could chase some pitches, and I think the biggest one was just his defense. People didn't think, as an everyday MLB player, that his defense in the outfield, even in right field, was maybe up to what they were comfortable with as an everyday player. He really worked a lot on that. Try to get, he has speed, like he didn't really need to add too much, but he, so it was that first step that he really wanted to correct and work on. And McKenna just struck out 3 pitches with a man on first, which is an unfortunate outcome there for him. But yeah, Newstrom, I think offensively definitely has a lot of upside, and he could be a DH technically at this level, maybe. But if you can have the ability to slot in any of the 3 outfield spots, you just feel better about his ability to translate to this level. And he's worked a lot on that. And I think he has 3 errors this year. 1 took a weird hop on him. 1 was a throwing error. And he mentioned how he's worked a lot on his arm to try to make sure those do not happen.
Right-hander number 34, Joey Crable. Crable now pitching for the Orioles.
And yeah, I think the last one, I forget what the 3rd error was, but he's making a concerted effort basically to be just a more complete player. And we're seeing it this year. I think he's been better defensively. And Norfolk has some weird wins. I know you guys go down there probably quite a bit, and I mean that can be a weird place to play in the outfield. So I think that's probably a good learning ground a little bit.
Yeah, I grew up down there going to Norfolk Tides games all the time. That right field especially can be a monster. I think Ryan Mountcastle is the only guy who I've seen conquer that right field wall up there. But you've had the opportunity to watch DL Hall this season. You've talked to him. What have been some of your biggest takeaways from not only just watching Hall pitch, but sitting down and talking with him?
Yeah. I was talking to a scout at Aberdeen when he made his first start of the season at an affiliate. And the scout was saying, he always had that fastball. He always had that big curveball was pretty impressive. The scout thought the changeup was maybe the most impressive pitch just from in terms of where it improved from pre-injury to now post-injury. That definitely, it impressed me a lot. I kind of posed that when I went down to Norfolk to talk to DL again last week. I posed that idea and was was that your most improved pitch? And he couldn't commit to just one. He said he really worked on that changeup a lot, but he feels like the curveball especially is trying to differentiate it with. It's basically he's trying to make it more of a 12-6, and it's really to make it a lot different from the slider. So he has 2 very distinct breaking pitches there. And I think my favorite quote from him in that conversation was about how he's not just a 100-mile-per-hour fastball guy, and you see it. I've watched him now twice in his affiliate play in person, and the radar gun is impressive, and he has that 100-mile-per-hour fastball when he needs it, when he needs to blow a pitch by a guy because he needs it out desperately. I mean, he can definitely wind back and get it, but the most impressive thing is how he can spot those off-speed pitches, and especially the changeup inside against righties has been really, really impressive. And I think that's an important pitch just for, his long-term longevity. And he's. I think people have this belief in him that he's going to be a reliever at this level, and he does not have that belief, and I don't really have that belief either. He has the stuff to be a starter, and the fact that he can spot 4 pitches consistently, he has the stuff that he can go through multiple times in order. I think that was maybe the most nerve-wracking thing was that one's definitely out of here. Yeah, Aaron Judge is second of the day. It's quite a day for him. He could have 3 home runs if not for that left field wall. So that's a tie game again. That was a no-doubter. But where was I? Oh yeah, DL. I think maybe the fact when he was a little bit more fastball curveball heavy. I think maybe people saw if he's only going to be that, how's he going to get to the 3rd time through an order, let alone a 2nd time through an order? And I think the fact that he really, he's super comfortable with that changeup. That slider is pretty deadly out of his hand. it's those pitches that make him a long. I think he can have long outings, and he can be a really good starter at this level. At least I think so. I don't know. I'm not a scout, but I think so.
I'm not a scout either, but I definitely think so. I think we saw a lot of those big improvements after the 2020 miss year last year, even though it was only like 34 innings that he got in. I feel like you could see the improvement of the command on his off-speed stuff. And, yeah, in his rehab stuff, especially that one game in Bowie, I felt like he was just the best I'd ever seen him. And that changeup was getting swings and misses almost every time he threw it. Obviously, an easy 100. So, yeah, can't wait to see him up at the major league level. Where am I? Okay, Gunnar Henderson, 2 home runs tonight. I mean, he seems to be making a run at climbing to the very top of prospect rankings all together with his performance in AA at just 20 years old still. You see him making the jump to AAA by the midpoint of the season?
Yeah, I do.
Attention media.
It was funny. I talked to Jordan Westberg early in the season at AA about that infield. Basically, I wrote a story about how the future of the Orioles infield is in Bowie with all the guys they have between Adam Hall, Joey Ortiz, Gunnar, and Jordan Westberg. All there. They could all technically be in Baltimore at some point. And although who knows where Adam Hall will play, he might be in the outfield by then. But Jordan, I asked him to compare how each of them differ, and he said Gunnar has, even at 20 years old, has absolutely the best draw power of the bunch and that he's seen. And you saw it tonight with the ball exploding off his bat, but he's kind of I feel like that's true. And Jordan said he was kind of maybe the best contact hitter of the bunch, and Joey was the best fielder of the bunch, could make the best plays. Just funny because Joey plays so much second base there, but. That was Jordan's breakdown of the group, and I think he's right that Gunnar has a lot of pop on that bat, and I talked to Gunnar about it. I think you hear so frequently is he going to outgrow shortstop, legitimately outgrow it, because he's probably still growing at 20 years old, and I posed that to him a little bit and was like, do you see third base as the option? And of course he gave the PR answer for a second where he was like, oh, wherever the Orioles want me to play, I'll play. And then he quickly changed his tune to, I'm a shortstop, and I'm going to be a shortstop at the next level. And so far, he hasn't had any issue with being a shortstop in AA. I haven't seen anything that's oh, maybe he needs to be a third baseman. You know what? I haven't seen it. We'll see if Mike Elias agrees with me. They might. He and Matt Blood might say, third base is just a better position for him to play long term in terms of for his jump to the major league level, but it's a nice play. End of the inning there, but I think Gunnar will make the jump pretty soon to short in the AAA level. How soon, I don't know, but he's absolutely raking at the AA level. He 29 straight games on base. He had 1 game off, and now it's 2 games back on base, and now 2 homers. So definitely an impressive stuff for him this season.
Yeah, and if anything, I feel like the defense has gotten much better from last year. We saw some errant throws last year. He's got a strong arm, but the accuracy was not always there, and he wasn't just missing balls. I feel like when I saw him a couple times in Aberdeen, but I haven't seen that at all this year.
Do it. All right, we got one more here. I don't know if Bob or Zach have any more for you, but one more for you. Grayson Rodriguez made a statement tonight, 5 1/3 scoreless, 11 strikeouts, 19 or 20 whiffs. Is he getting to the point now where he's forcing that promotion relatively soon?
Yeah, I think the best part of that was the season high pitch count to 87. They're going to steadily increase that. I was talking to his dad, and his dad said that, he figured by midsummer he could be in the promotion talk. So not entirely right, on the doorstep. I think I saw someone tweet could he be Sunday starter? And I'm like, no, I don't think he's in line for that. But he's definitely making quite a case. I think what impressed me the most was he was throwing 99 mile per hour sinkers that looked pretty deadly. So that's definitely a good sign. But yeah, he'll make his debut this season. Whenever that might be is kind of up to how healthy he can stay, how long he can, extend his innings. You'd like to see him complete 6. I think 5 1/3 is the most he's pitched this season in the AAA level. Again, but 87 is the most he's pitched so far. So, yeah, see if he can hit 100, I'd say. And once he hits 100 pitches, you'll feel pretty good about Grayson coming to this level.
Well, Andy, we really appreciate you taking the time out while you're at Camden Yards covering the game to talk to us tonight. Tell our listeners where to follow you on Twitter.
Right-hander number 55.
Yeah, you can follow me if you look up Andy Kostka. I'm like the only one out there with this name, I'm pretty sure. But KOSTKA, the @ is @AF Kostka, KOSTKA.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. We'll definitely have you come back with a more calm atmosphere in the background. But this was fun, though. This was fun.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good. Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you. That was Andy Kostka of the Baltimore Sun giving us really good insight from the press box at Camden Yards. It's kind of like he had his own cheering section in a way.
Yeah, now I feel like the letdown. We just left the ballpark. There's no more cheering. No, I thought that was a cool atmosphere for an interview. So great insight from Andy. He does great work with the Baltimore Sun. Definitely check him out if you have the chance.
Yeah, we plugged some of his pieces on the show before in the relatively short time he's been with the Sun. I think he started there back in the spring. He wrote a very good one about Hudson Haskin that we talked about on the show a few weeks ago. We brought up the Robert Newstrom, Nick Vespi piece. He mentioned he's working on a story about Adley Rutschman that I'm really looking forward to reading because not only do I think it's going to be an excellent article, but it's going to mean that Adley Rutschman is in the major leagues. And I don't want to spend a lot of time dwelling on the fact that Rutschman wasn't in the major leagues last night because while I kind of had expected it and was, felt something of a letdown, I also don't think the Orioles are reacting to anything. Whatever their plan is their plan. And I'll tell you right now, I have no clue what that plan is. You can tell they're definitely keeping this close to the chest. And the Orioles, keep things close to the chest like this, but this especially feels like nobody's going to say a thing. All of a sudden, one afternoon, you're just going to find out he's in the starting lineup in 3 hours.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's the Mike Elias style. Like, we didn't see Nick Vespi and Logan Gillespie coming today. I mean, I thought Vespi would definitely be called up soon after the Paul Fry demotion and subsequent DFA, but Logan Gillespie, that kind of came out of nowhere. But I definitely think they have it planned. This isn't reactionary. If we know anything about the Elias regime, it's that it's very buttoned up. It's very, they know what they're going to do, and they're going to do it as long as everything goes according to plan. So it'll be very soon. Like I said, I'm done speculating, but it'll be here soon, and it'll be an exciting day when it happens. Yeah, I bought the tickets to go see him and pushed our episode back, but it was still fun to see Kyle Bradish pitch. Felix Bautista, even though he gave up 2 home runs, it was still cool to see the big guy up on the mound.
Yeah, I'm not speculating either. I'm not wasting any time or energy. It's people today was a show on social media. Look, when it happens, it's going to happen. All I can say right now is that tonight he had the 2 hardest hit balls in this game. Shout out to Charlotte Knights for the StatCast data. 112.6 miles per hour in the home run, 107.5 miles per hour. You look at the batting average, whatever you want. Look at any statistic you want. It doesn't matter. Some of that data, like he's hitting the ball hard. He's hitting the ball far. His first home run that he hit the other night, I mean, I don't know how he connected. The wind might have finished pushing that one out, but the fact that he was able to connect on that ball that was about to at his shoulders, literally about to hit his shoulder, I don't know how he was able to turn on that and get it out. But I mean, the guy's ready. The Orioles have their plan, and they're going to stick with it. And, after watching Grayson Rodriguez tonight as well, not watching him because we were getting ready for this and doing the show, but looking at this line, I mean, 99.2 miles per hour twice. Averaged almost 97 miles per hour in the fastball, 11 strikeouts, like Andy mentioned there, season high in strikeouts and innings pitched. I think the defense, I saw some rumblings there. The defense, of course, in Norfolk's kind of messed that up at the end there, but I'm not throwing any speculation out there, but if you could bring both of these guys up at the same time right now, like they're ready at this point.
Yeah, I definitely think, that one home run by Rutschman. Yeah, you said it, the wind might have helped a little bit, but to bring his hands in and turn on that's major league stuff right there. He's been ready for a while, but And also, like you said, Charlotte Knights, can we get StatCast data in every freaking minor league ballpark? Because it's amazing to have. The Kyle Stowers home run was 104 point something, cool to see. And yeah, I mean, when I saw Adley play in Aberdeen that one game, his first of the rehab appearance, and even just watching him on MILB TV, you can tell he hits the ball incredibly hard almost every single time he makes contact. And to have that represented now with a mile per hour by the StatCast is pretty cool to see. I bet his expected batting average is much higher than his actual batting average.
Yeah, it does feel like Grayson is, if he's not ready, he's very, very close to ready. Because we talked at the beginning of the year, you need to stretch him out a little bit and get him going. Well, they've done that. They have been pushing him deeper in the games. He has been throwing more pitches, and he's actually been challenged a bit in his last few outings. It hasn't been that he's gone out there and completely dominated. Tonight he did was 11 strikeouts, but a couple of his outings recently, he's had to work through some tough luck on defense, maybe not having his sharpest command. And he's done what I think you would want your starting pitcher to do, is at least keep the tides in the game. And it kind of reminds me of Kyle Bradish against the Yankees on Monday night. Bradish didn't have his best stuff, wasn't his best start, but the Orioles were still in that game when Kyle Bradish was pulled. And that's kind of what you want from your starters, and something the Orioles have not had much of in the last 4 years. So I think Grayson Rodriguez is at least at the point where he can do that. And I think that, I expect that you're still going to see Adley Rutschman before you see Grayson Rodriguez and before you see DL Hall. But I think that gap between Rutschman and Rodriguez probably not that wide at this point, maybe a few weeks. Maybe. I don't think we're talking about months.
Yeah, let's say Adley gets caught up Friday. Let's say, it's no speculation, but just say he did. Then maybe that May 31st date is the Grayson date, get him face Julio Rodriguez and stuff. But yeah, I think he's getting very close. And I like what Vivek said, that 87 pitch mark is when they brought Kyle Bradish up. So to see Grayson hit that many pitches in a game means he's getting fairly close. And, they might want him to break 90 before they bring him up. But it's exciting. He's faced adversity. He's fought through it and rebounded nicely, which you want to see, which is, I think, what Justin Ramsey talked about last year when he faced some adversity, or was it Matt Blood? I can't remember, but he faced some adversity in Bowie, and that's when, that they said they felt like they learned more about him from that than when he just goes out and dominates. And I love to hear stuff like that. And man, this team is going to be so exciting in a month or two. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. Yes, I know Orioles fans are, and we can move on from Adley Rutschman and Grayson Rodriguez after this, but there's been so much Adley Rutschman talk, I know. But I know all three of us wanted Adley Rutschman up last year. The man belonged in the major leagues last year. No one is denying that whatsoever. But think about this now. We've been demanding these prospects come up for so long now, and we've had Felix Bautista. I can't even remember all of Kyle Bradish, who was pitching very well. I think his expected numbers are a lot better than some of the numbers he's putting up right now. 11 strikeouts, no walks. I love Kyle Bradish, but I never imagined him doing that his rookie year up in the big leagues. He is pitching extremely well. Nick Vespi and Logan Gillespie tonight. Hopefully they make their debut tonight or sometime soon. We're seeing these calls. Rylan Bannon, they're trickling in. And now, any day now, we're going to see Adley Rutschman. And then, like Zach said, it's a matter of weeks, not months. So give it a couple weeks. Grayson Rodriguez will be up. Give it a couple weeks. If DL Hall keeps pitching like he's pitching now, he's going to be up. Top three prospects in the system. Kyle Stowers, his back-to-back home runs in back-to-back games tonight, he's starting to heat back up. And even though with that slump, I don't think the strikeouts, I don't have his numbers up in front of me, but I don't think his strikeouts have been ticking up even during this slump. So again, that could be a matter of what Adley's doing right now in AAA. Maybe he's hitting the ball hard, but it's just a lot of bad luck or whatever. But these guys are right here. They are coming. And in 2 months, this major league roster is going to be 100% different than what it is now.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing actually I meant to note when we were talking about DL Hall before was that his changeup really is much improved, and I think it might be his second best weapon after his fastball now. And we've heard before from a couple sources that the Orioles feel like they can teach pitchers a really good changeup, and I think we're starting to see that in action now. So that's very exciting as far as just pitcher development throughout the system goes.
you kind of get the sense, and I sort of got this from Andy, and I've gotten this reading articles where Hall is interviewed or even seeing video interviews of him. You get the sense that reliever talk really gets under his skin and has been a real motivating factor for him. So my question to you guys is, should we just continue to talk about it? No, I don't want to troll DL Hall, but you definitely get the sense that that's something that like lights a fire in him. And this is a guy that's already competitive as is.
Dude. I absolutely love his attitude. I mean, I probably hate it if he was a Yankee or Red Sox, but I freaking love it because I don't think we've had at least a pitcher with the, I'm the best, come prove me wrong attitude. And I absolutely love it. It's going to be fantastic to see on a weekly basis.
Exactly. The talks of all the walks pissed him off. Like, let's call it what it is. It pisses him off to talk about all the command issues, to call him, injury plagued, to call him a reliever. I think some of the stuff has been, he deletes it, but whenever big prospect list comes out, he's got comments about them. I think it was a funny one. I don't know if it was Baseball America or MLB Pipeline. He's like, do they even watch us play? Like, the dude has got, I think Bob said it perfectly there. If he wasn't an Oriole, I would probably hate DL Hall and think like this guy. But he's on this Orioles roster that I've been begging for some personality. We're seeing that at the major league level this year. The home run chain is what it is. But that aside, this major league roster, Ryan Mountcastle, Mateo, Andy's turning me around on Jorge Mateo there. Shout out to Ben in the Patreon group. He kept fighting for him. I'm turning on him a little bit. In a good way, but yeah, that I want that attitude with Grayson and Adley in the major leagues, and just keep dreaming on it. It's going to happen soon.
Yeah, Adley's not going to give you the personality, but he'll give you the incredible performance, and then we'll have some sprinkle some personality around him. And actually, I think DL and Grayson will bring some personality out of him that he wouldn't typically bring.
I think behind the scenes, Adley is right there with him. He keeps up with them.
He's the perfect Mike Elias basically Mike Elias and Adley Rutschman will always be tied together because he was the first one after he took over, and they are so both buttoned up. They're perfect for each other.
Speaking of players that play with personality, Gunnar Henderson, we talked about how good Gunnar Henderson was last week, and I didn't really think we were going to need to revisit that again, but he's hit 2 home runs tonight against Hartford at Prince George's Stadium. He's now reached base, I believe it's 31 of 32 games this season, reached base 29 games in a row at one point. And like we talked about in our interview, he is just much better in so many different ways this year. He's a more complete hitter. He's not striking out as much. He has gotten better at shortstop. I have to feel like the time for him to get to AAA is getting close. And, go there and perform. I think he's going to be there for the rest of the year when he gets there. But this is just, I've always been high on Gunnar Henderson. Listeners of the show know that. Readers over at Baltimore Sports and Life know that. But I didn't see this coming this year at all. Because I don't think you could, I think if you had drawn this up, it's like, that's too much of a best case scenario. Don't expect that.
Yeah, he's hit his 150% that I expected of him. You know how Pecota always does that percentage of breakthrough and all that. Like, this is unbelievable. Like, I'm just waiting. Like, part of me is just waiting for it to come back down to earth a bit, but it's only getting better as the season goes on. Now the power's starting to come, which we know he hits the ball hard, but now he's starting to hit him over the fence a little bit more. He had a triple on Sunday as well. Like, man, he could be a top 20 prospect in baseball by July.
Easily. He's hitting over 300 now with his 2-for-3 performance with 3 RBIs and 2 home runs. I think John Mioli, shout out to John Mioli for those videos that I saw right before we hopped on. John's at the Bowie Bay Sox game tonight. That first home run, the bat drop and the little stop and put the head down and start jogging towards first. My man is bored in Bowie. That was my first impression. He's like, all right, another one. Let me jog around the home plate here and get back to the dugout so I can do it again. Challenge this guy. This is the point, and I mentioned, I just have put a piece up on BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com, and I said, I still think this is going under the radar. I still don't think what Gunnar Henderson is doing so far this season is getting talked about enough. And And, when we had Mike Elias on, he admitted, he was like, yeah, like some of those initial assignments were probably a little conservative. But, and Matt Blood said the same thing, that they're not afraid to move these guys up and challenge them. And I think Gunnar Henderson has reached that point where he's done being challenged in Double-A. Cesar Prieto is done being challenged in High A. That one I could certainly understand being that initial placement, first time over here in the States, but he is having too easy of a job with the Aberdeen Ironbirds right now, so he's got to move up. You look at the AAA roster, though, and it's like, how are all the dominoes going to fall? I don't know, but I imagine in the next week, probably next Monday, we see mass movement in this organization. And it could be, maybe it is this weekend, but we know they like to make a lot of these minor league moves Sunday night, Monday with the off day, obviously. But yeah, and I think someone, I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but someone had commented on Twitter that, they expected, if anything, for Westberg to be putting up these types of numbers, or Westberg to be the guy pushing for a AAA promotion at this point, not Gunnar Henderson. And yet, like you guys said, Gunnar Henderson is far surpassing expectations at this point.
At this point, I think Gunnar Henderson could be the best prospect on maybe 26 or 27 of the major league teams right now, and he's our fourth best prospect. That's how loaded we are at the top. So unbelievable development. You always expect players to break through every season and to kind of crash back down a little bit based on your expectations. But to have a guy who is already like a top 4 or 5 in one of the best farm systems in baseball to take this big of a leap is just, it's crazy. And we have 1-1 coming up. Don't forget about that.
Before we move on, I do actually want to talk about Jordan Westberg a little bit, because Westberg did get into a slump and now seems to be breaking out of it. It actually started a little bit, I want to say it was last week, where he was walking a lot, but the base hits weren't dropping in. Now the hits are starting to drop in again. He's 2 for 4 tonight against Hartford. Even if he's, let's say, hitting, 230, 240 in a few weeks, do you write off that slump and promote him to AAA? Because I think I would.
For me, 1,000%. I think, obviously you don't want to promote him in the middle of a slump like that, but they have their own way of, I don't think they're just looking at, the stat line and, he's batting 145 this week. I think they're going more off of exit velocities and just pitch selections as we've seen throughout the system. I think they'll know when he's ready, and it might not look like, he's banging down the door for us, but I think if he's hitting the ball hard, he's playing good defense, I definitely think he's another, by midseason, he'll be up in AAA, even if the numbers aren't as good as we might expect.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about, putting Gunnar Henderson, switch that for Gunnar Henderson, I would say no. But Westberg, I would say yes. And that's mostly due to, like, when we've had Tim DeJean on, when we've had Matt Blood on, and we've talked to these guys, the teammates of these players, what all of them have to say about Westberg and his personality and who he is off the field. And as a player, how he prepares day in and day out, like, that gives me confidence that even though he is slumping, like, he doesn't need anybody to tell him that he's slumping or he's having a bad game. He's the first one to admit it. And I think he got ejected the other night. And was I wrong there?
Game
clearly
2 doubleheader against Reading, yeah.
And this is even when he's breaking out of the slump. I mean, he's getting fired up, getting ejected. But it's for that reason, I would say, yeah, that's why I think if you want to promote Gunnar and Westberg, keep them together and move them up to Norfolk in, a week, maybe 2 weeks, that's fine. Or do Henderson in a week and then Westberg in 2 or 3 weeks. I think I would definitely do that because, yeah, Westberg is a guy that I don't ever see putting up the big flashy numbers. I see Westberg as being a guy who is just quietly, consistently a good, solid major leaguer year after year. Never too high, never too low. By the end of the year, when you look at a stat line, maybe never, maybe not a multi-time All-Star, but just year in and year out, you can count on Westberg to be a reliable bat in your lineup.
Absolutely, and we'll move on now to the segment at the end of our show where we like to shout out players for things that they have done recently, whether it's been a good game, good performance, or maybe something that we noticed watching them or seeing their stat line, so we want to point out. And I'm going to start with Nick here, who's got pretty interesting hitter and a pitcher at Aberdeen who seems to be getting more dominant by the outing.
Yes, let me find who I put there. Yeah, Andrew Dashbach. I put as my hitter. Dashbach was a guy who I've always been really hesitant to buy the hype on. And there was a little bit going into last season, but I was kind of skeptical just because he can get on base, no issues there, but the insane strikeout numbers always scared me. And, he's not like a Kyle Stowers type who can hit the ball extremely well, hit for high average and still get on base. But Dashbach went 4 for 10 last week with 2 home runs and 4 walks to just 2 strikeouts. Him and Zach Watson both ended the week on a pretty high note for Bowie. So I think with Jordan Westberg and Joey Ortiz even breaking out of their slumps, I'm anxious to see where this Bowie roster goes this week. And for my pitcher, I'm going back to Aberdeen, and I can't remember if one of you had Carlos Tavera on a recent episode, and if you guys did, I apologize to the listeners, but you get to hear about Carlos Tavera again because I'm going to pound the drum for these Aberdeen pitchers every chance I get because I love the staff so much. And Tavera threw 5 shutout innings last week, allowed just 1 hit, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. Over his last 2 outings, he's got 9 scoreless innings with 11 strikeouts, 2 walks, just 1 hit. And we heard before the season that if he could throw strikes and not walk guys, he would be considered a legitimate starting pitching prospect in this system. And he's doing exactly that. You go look at running that fastball up to 96 miles an hour. If you look at the video that we posted the other day from his outing, it looks like he's playing with a wiffle ball out there with some of those pitches. I don't know how guys are hitting it, but they're literally not hitting him over the last 2 weeks. So if Carlos Tavera isn't on your radar, put him on your radar right now.
I absolutely love Carlos Tavera. I feel like we can't talk about him enough. And, not to bring up the cupboards and all that, but the pitching is just continuously impressive to me throughout this entire system at every level. So I love that shout out. I'm going to go with my pitcher first, Connor Gillespie, a guy who, interestingly enough, 24 years old, 9th round pick in 2019 draft, has only ever played for the Aberdeen Ironbirds. They were the short season team when he got drafted. He pitched there. Then he was with them all of last season, and now he's been with them all of this season so far. But he had a great outing, 6 innings of he gave up 1 hit or something and 8 strikeouts in his last time out. And he's been pitching really well. So I wanted to shout him out. He's a guy I think that has been hurt by the long ball. His home run to fly ball ratio has been pretty high the past couple of years, but he's another interesting arm. I think he's more of a bullpen arm going forward, but they keep stretching him out throughout his career, and we'll see where it goes. Strikeouts are up, walks are down this year, so shout out to him. And for my batter, I'm going Shane Fontana, kind of like a Dylan Harris special here, like where another 2019 pick who 23rd round outfielder, never really thought anything of him other than this is like the organizational filler type. Well, all of a sudden he's in Double-A, and he's walking 17% of the time with a 149 WRC plus, hitting for some power, getting on base with the 866 OPS. He's all of a sudden he's batting cleanup in a loaded Bowie lineup. And it's like, okay, I guess they unlock something here. We'll start paying attention to him too.
Yeah, Gillespie has been pretty sharp for Aberdeen this year. It's good to see him getting stretched out a little bit. And, even if he is more of a bullpen arm down the line, I think this is a good time to let him pitch deeper into games, see what his repertoire is, and see what you can work with. My picks this week, I got to shout out Creed Willems for his first professional home run. And he did it in a way that is not easy. If you were listening to our show early last year, week after week, we would talk about what Gunnar Henderson was doing in Delmarva and how he's this left-handed hitter hitting the ball opposite field of Purdue Stadium, which is not an easy thing to do. The power alleys down there are somewhat deep. It's not easy for a lefty to poke it out to left center field. Creed Willems' first professional home run on Sunday was just that. Hit out to left center field. He had a good swing on it. He had a triple in that game as well. And he has been pretty solid behind the plate for Delmarva. So maybe this past weekend represents a point where the bat's going to start to come around a little bit more. And this Delmarva team still struggling overall, but they had a couple of good games last week, and definitely get the feeling that maybe as the bats start to heat up a little bit, the Stourbirds are going to win more games. And pitcher is an easy pick, but I don't know that enough can be said to really shout out Nick Vespi for the way that he has reached the major leagues. Last year, you remember, he was pretty good at Bowie to start the year, got hurt, was barely off the IL when he was promoted to Norfolk, struggled there, but then went to the Arizona Fall League and just dominated. And he's getting shouted out by Jonathan Mayo on the MLB Network broadcast about being a possible Rule 5 pick. Rule 5 draft in Major League phase doesn't happen. He stays with the Orioles, and I'm sure that was a disappointment in a way to him at the time, but it has paid off for the Orioles, and I think it's paid off for him. He was not walking anybody at Norfolk, striking people out, and that fastball slider combination, to me, gives him a chance to be a successful reliever at the Major League level. And yeah, he's not throwing 97, 98. This is not another Tanner Scott, CNL Perez type fastball, but the way he commands it, the way he moves it, and then the slider to go with that, he's going to be pretty sharp. I think fans are going to quickly come to like watching Nick Vespi pitch at the Major League level. So congratulations to him, and congratulations to Logan Gillespie too. I wrote this down before we knew Gillespie was going, but I have to give him a lot of credit. Great backstory how he was picked out of the Brewers and picked by the Brewers out of independent ball, released by Milwaukee eventually, then signed by the Orioles early last year, goes to Aberdeen, then Bowie, makes a 40-man roster, and was getting praised by Eric Longenhagen for the way that his stuff looked in the Arizona Fall League, and then comes out of the gate this year strong at Bowie, and then Norfolk, and now the majors. So congrats to both of them.
Yeah, Gillespie fits right into with Felix Bautista, Brian Baker, Ciano Perez, just a guy who's going to come in and throw gas. And then he can wipe you out with that slider as well. But yeah, Nick Vespi, like that was amazing to actually see those flowing golden locks on the graphics. It's saying like he's an Oriole. You look back, like I was looking at his page earlier, 149 minor league games. He was a starter and reliever coming up for his first couple of years. Then he was like, they put him in the full time as a bullpen in 2018. Then he's back as a starter / reliever in 2019 in Delmarva. Doesn't pitch at all in high A because the pandemic season. Gets promoted to Bowie, where now he's back in the bullpen after having a really good season as a starter with Delmarva in 2019. But now he's back in the bullpen, and now he's just dominating. And now he's a major leaguer. And it was really, really cool to see Nick Vespi in the major leagues after all these years. A guy that the Elias regime, I feel like, could have came in and when they were cleaning house, let Vespi go after a guy who kind of struggled in Delmarva, just like Ofelke Peralta, but could have let him go. But they put their faith in Vespi, and it's paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool to see. And you could tell how high the organization was with him because, like you said, he just skipped high A completely. I think we were a little bit surprised when he was on the AA roster when those 2021 rosters came out, and he dominated there. He got hurt. And then, like Zach said, that he struggled a little bit with AAA, but his peripherals were much better than the numbers indicated. And he proved that at the AFL. And thank goodness the Rule 5 got canceled because we would have lost him. And I think he's going to be a really good presence in that Orioles bullpen going forward.
If you like listening to us talk about pitchers, you're going to love next week's show when Norfolk Tides pitching coach Justin Ramsey comes on. Justin apparently heard our interview with Drew Rom and decided, I want to do that too. He'll be on for the whole show. That's his plan as of right now, so we're really looking forward to his appearance next Monday. In the meantime, continue to follow us on Twitter at BSL and the Verge, and be sure to check out the latest articles at BaltimoreSportsAndLife.com. Bob and Nick both have news stories up there this week, and there's also a lot of great Orioles, Ravens, college sports coverage, and more. So be sure to hop on the message board and join the discussion with fellow readers of the site as well as contributors. For Bob and Nick, this is Zach Spedden. We'll be back next Monday, and you've been listening to On the Verge.
Today, we discuss Miro. Today, I want to talk about the hellscape that is technical diagramming, right? Everybody's nodding their heads right now. And there is a potential solution that I want to share. There was one name that several people brought up. I did some digging, and it's kind of nuts how much this program Miro has for developers. I have to share this. It could potentially be a game changer for you. So my favorite part about Miro is that half the work is already done. Like right now, typically we spend hours starting diagrams from scratch, gathering information. You get buy-in from every team. That's a lot of work to do. But Miro has a full set of integrations with the tools you're probably already using. And they also offer open APIs and SDKs for custom solutions for all those niche diagramming million use cases we have to do, right? So the end result is the same, but it doesn't take forever. It's a massive, massive time saver. I'm transforming basic flowcharts and network architectures, and it all lives in one place. So are you using Miro? Have you used it? I want to hear.
That's Miro.com.